This episode is brought to you by Batiste Dry Shampoo. Whether you're on the go, at the gym, or getting ready for a night out, Batiste has a dry shampoo for you. Refresh with over 10 signature fragrances. Or try Batiste Hint of Color, a tinted dry shampoo that seamlessly blends with your hair. Need an extra boost? Try Batiste Dry Shampoo with added benefits, like volumizing, texturizing, and more. Buy Batiste now, in-store or online at your nearest retailer.
Did you know Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company? They're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how I'm more than just quarterback Peyton Manning, I'm also meditating Manning. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.
The following is an exclusive presentation of News Radio KMAN, your home for K-State athletics. It's game time. This is The Game on News Radio KMAN.
Oh, man, a K-State fan is laying it all on the line, but I would honestly appreciate it if you would all stop ruining beefy 5-layer burritos for me. Because I like beefy 5-layer burritos. I get them once in a while. Troy's looking at me like he has no idea what I'm talking about, and I'm surprised by that because a K-State fan is making the rounds nationally.
Oh, boy.
Because he's putting out a lot of pressure on the Cats. And especially with how much you're on Twitter, I'm surprised you didn't see this.
I had other things with my attention today.
This was going on yesterday. I understand that, but I mean, it's been over a day now. So I'll fill you in here. There are probably a lot of people listening that don't know either. So here's what's going on. At Saint Bill Snyder.
Oh, man.
Says if K-State loses to BYU, he's going to shove a beefy 5-layer burrito up his keister. That's making the national rounds. That's a play off of a Florida State fan who said if Florida State did not beat Boston College, he was going to consume some feces, some canine feces. Backed out of that. And now this K-State fan is making the rounds and just had to put more pressure on the Cats. If K-State didn't have enough on their shoulders going into Provo, Utah, they're 3-0. A lot of people, in the media are saying, oh, now they're on their personal top 4 for the College Football Hall of Fame, and that the Cats are going to win the Big 12 championship and, going to be that 4-seed or 3-seed or whatever and going to have a nice run to the college football playoff. Now you add this to the equation. Troy doesn't seem like a Taco Bell guy to me.
Oh, heck no.
Why not? I do like Taco Bell. I do like it. I am still a college kid at heart. I love free food and I love cheap food. Now, Taco Bell used to be just insanely cheap.
Yes.
Like the value menu or whatever you want to call it. It was like McDonald's where it was so cheap. It was kind of like, oh, this is like ridiculously cheap. You could easily raise the prices and people are going to still pay for this stuff. And the line for Taco Bell, like it is to this day, would be like crazy. Now it's just because the inside is, they're not doing anything with the inside lobby, so now the drive-through lane is super long. And hardly don't want to wait for it anymore.
Well, and that's why you've got the one in West Manhattan turning into a drive-through only one. Literally, they tore down the building.
Well, I know that. But that used to be the slowest Taco Bell in America.
Oh, that's going to be great. Love that traffic.
So I'm surprised you have not asked the recent college graduate about his opinion on Taco Bell.
Well, you can allow me to get to you, and now you may give us your 2 cents if you want.
Well, now I don't really want to.
Okay, then. Welcome to the game. Mitch Fortner, Troy Coverdale, and A.J. Shaw. Is there in the Chicago area or Illinois, like a popular regional fast food chain?
Yeah. Plenty of them.
Okay.
Plenty of them. Yeah, there's a lot of
Well, like what?
Okay. Chick-fil-A.
That's not
regional.
Oh, regional? I don't know. Well, let's just move on.
We are off to a hot start. Cats at BYU on Saturday for a 9:30 kick. Power Cat game day will start 5:30 in the evening, the latest Power Cat game day I've ever been a part of, and it is the latest kickoff for K-State football since Nebraska 1992 in Tokyo, Japan.
I just want to point out, you asked the guy from Hoffman Estates about fast food.
Listen, nobody's too good. If Bill Gates will go into an In-N-Out
that's a good point.
and stand in line just like everybody else, nobody is too good for fast food. Some of us, just like it a little bit too much. I am absolutely guilty of that. I eat out way too much, but dang it, I like a good burrito once in a while.
Right.
More on this game. We're going to hear from, in our next segment, Mitch Harper, who is an insider for BYU. He hosts the equivalent for BYU to Power Cat Game Day, the extended pregame coverage, and I'll actually be on that show. But we're going to hear from Mitch Harper coming up here in a few moments and his breakdown of BYU and where the Cougars are at so far. Curry Sexton will join us at 5:10. Mitch in Vegas is at 5:25. If you want to vote on the Mitch in Vegas games, which the people are represented in the standings, at Mitch the Ford on Twitter, we'll get those retweeted as well at the game KMAN, and we'll hear from offensive coordinator Connor Riley in hour number 2 as well. He'll give us his 2 cents on where Dante Cephas is at and preparing for the loud environment at LaVell Edwards Stadium. And Troy, did you tell us on air that you've never actually been, and I was surprised to hear this, you've never actually called a game at BYU?
Yeah, never did fall on our schedule.
I'm surprised by that, being pretty close, right?
Right. Well, and as I noted the other day, we had game at Utah Valley, which is Orem, so, literally right in the lap of Provo, but never did have them on the schedule.
It's like
Utah State was the other one. Those two were the oddities to me, because we never did play either one of those schools and visit either location. With Logan as close as it is to Ogden, where Weber State is, and the fact that we would go to Idaho State, Logan falls right in between. It would have made a lot of sense, but never did play Utah State.
Well, and putting my personal thoughts about BYU to the side and just focusing on sports. I mean, BYU, of the new programs that are now in the Big 12, they are probably number one on my list of visiting that football stadium and seeing a game. It's because, and the fan experience is kind of through the roof there now. And
right.
The mascot is basically Tom Cruise out there. He's doing stunts during commercial breaks.
I don't.
So
I
3
don't
minutes
know.
go fast.
Yeah, I don't know how they're getting mascots that are able to keep up with all of that.
I mean, he's like throwing flaming batons and doing summers. He's like doing the. It's like a test of strength almost, where you're doing push-ups up to other tables that are stacked on top of one another. They're just hiring stunt doubles to come be their mascot.
Have to be.
It's really entertaining if you've seen videos of it. And it's like every home game. Like, it's expected. You're going to go to a game. The crowd is going to be loud, sober, and it's going to be a tough environment. And meanwhile, during the commercial breaks, the mascot is jumping through flaming hoops. Jeez. Or stuff, just crazy stunts.
I mean, basically the super mascot Rocky for you Nuggets fans.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. There's your equivalent right there, because I don't think anybody else in college football is doing crazy things. Maybe the tree out in Stanford probably does a little bit too many turns for me, because I would be crazy dizzy. Remember seeing that tree at, not this past year, obviously, but when K-State women's basketball hosted the NCAA tournament at Stanford, Tara Vanderveer comes into town and has a 2 seat in the dancing tree. Is there and just doing spin after spin after spin after spin during every media time. I'm like, how is this person not just getting sick every game? Doing more spins than a ballerina at every home or away game, depending on if the mascots don't typically travel in college basketball. But anyway, well, obviously going to talk a lot of BYU in today's show. Did want to point this out in the opening segment, because this is obviously as I break this down for you, an amazing cause. And this was tweeted out by Avery Johnson yesterday. I believe it was last night. His high school principal, Chris Botts at Mays High, has been diagnosed with cancer. And Avery Johnson put out this video yesterday on his Twitter account at Avery2 Johnson, the number 2 in between his first and last name, and teamed up with Champs Raise, and they're raising money for his high school principal to fight cancer. The goal is $20,000. And I mentioned earlier the whole beefy 5-layer burritos, more pressure on K-State to go get a W. I think maybe this has now fired up Avery Johnson even more to go score some points, because he's not only fighting for the Cats, trying to get some wins, he's also fighting for his high school principal to fight cancer. So basically how this works, you can just go to Avery Johnson's Twitter account, and I retweeted it at Mitch the Fort, and just go donate. The goal is $20,000. But also money will be donated every touchdown Avery Johnson scores. Rushing, passing, even if he's involved in a receiving touchdown, that'll go towards Mr. Botts as well. So a quote here from the article, and it's kind of like a GoFundMe type of thing. But one of the paragraphs here says your pledge will convert to a donation each month throughout the season based on the number of touchdowns by Avery Johnson in the month prior. For example, if you pledge $10 and Avery scores 10 touchdowns in the month of October, your pledge turns into a $100 donation on November 15th. So in the middle of the next month. For September, touchdowns will only count for BYU and Oklahoma State since the campaign launch on September 14th, which was 5 days ago. So, you're basically also betting on Avery. So if you bet, or not bet, but if you donate $10, expect Avery to score some touchdowns, and your donation is going to go a lot higher. And I just want to shout out BYU fans as well. BYU fans have seen this on social media, and as I look through the words of support, like the GoFundMe, you can make a donation, leave a little message, and your name pops up there on the side. I've seen a number of BYU fans who are, obviously jacked for this game on Saturday. Avery's about to play in their stadium, and BYU fans are donating to Avery's high school principal to fight cancer. So I got to tip my cap to those BYU fans and K-State fans that are trying to help for this great cause. Cancer sucks. We've all been affected in some way to fight cancer. Shout out to everybody that has donated to this great cause so far. And again, I've retweeted if you want to donate as well. And shout out to Avery Johnson for obviously taking this to the next level. And Avery donated this season to his high school principal, Dr. Botts. Let's take a timeout, and when we come back, we take our first our major look into BYU. We speak with Mitch Harper out of this timeout. A look at BYU next on The Game.
You're listening to The Game on News Radio KMAN. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for
I've suggested this song for third downs at the Bill. I have not heard it yet. I think I've just heard the one wrestling theme I've given them, which was Seth Rollins' old theme. It's really good. I heard it at Boone Pickens. I was like, dang, I'm kind of getting fired up here. I kind of want now Oklahoma State to get the stop, but it's funny how that works on you.
Right.
I got so sick of Timmy Trumpet after hearing it so much at Missouri last year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they played every third down. And
imagine being there and here it got really irritating because K-State faced third down 19 times in that game.
It was ridiculous how many times I had to hear that day. I was so sick of it.
If you were sick of that, imagine how Mets ownership felt about it a few years ago.
Yeah, with Edwin Diaz.
Yes. By
the way, real quick, AJ, I did a quick Google search, regional fast food popular in Illinois. How about Shoop's Hamburgers?
I have never heard of Shoop's Hamburgers. That must be a downstate thing.
Yeah, 19 locations. How about Johnny's Beef?
I've had Johnny's Beef once.
How about Beefaroo?
Heard of Beefaroo?
Well, we're waiting on that here in town.
Oh, we're getting one?
Yeah, where the old Burger King was on the opposite side of Seth Childs.
Oh, in Aggieville?
No.
No? Oh.
Oh, yeah.
No, the former Burger King in Aggieville is a Mexican
okay.
restaurant.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
I'm talking next. I'm
way
talking.
behind.
Yeah, I'm talking next to Wendy's.
Oh, yeah. I know. By Power Cat.
Yeah,
Sports Grill.
Fast Food Row.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fast Food Row West Side.
Yeah.
Got you.
I've never heard of Beefaroo,
I have.
but it says here 8 locations, mostly in the Rockford area.
Yep. I've heard of Beefaroo. That's north. That's north. That's kind of northwest. That's west of where I'm at. But yeah, it's kind of. If you look at a map of Illinois, I can't really describe it because we're on radio. But yeah, Rockford is west of where I'm at, near the North Shore, as they like to call it, up at where I'm at.
All right, let's take our first look at BYU. The Cougars are 3-0 receiving votes in the polls. K-State, of course, number 13 in the nation, and 3-0 as well. Cats have not played in the state of Utah since 1992. Let's take our first look at BYU from KSL News Radio and BYU insider Mitch Harper. And Mitch, greatly appreciate you joining us here on the show. First, I want to talk about Lavelle Edwards for just a moment, because both of these teams have their football stadiums named after the biggest head coach in their program's history. Manhattan would not be what it is without Bill Snyder. What's been the impact still to this day of Lavelle Edwards in his 20-plus year run as the head coach at BYU, including winning a national championship?
Oh, it's significant, Mitch. And, Lavelle made BYU football an event. And before his arrival, BYU football was really nothing. It had no identity. Yeah, occasional 6-7 win season, but people didn't go to the games. There was no interest, and he turned it into an event. And because BYU had so much success in Lavelle's 29 years that included a national title, BYU's in the Big 12 because of Lavelle. Without Lavelle Edwards, BYU is not in the Big 12 conference. It's as simple as that. Without his success and ability to really revolutionize the passing attack in college football, BYU carved out an identity as a faith-based institution in Provo, Utah, in the Intermountain West. It's pretty remarkable stuff, and I thought it was cool this week when Kalani pointed out Bill Snyder and Lavelle, because you have two programs that within many people's lifetimes that'll be in the stadium on Saturday night, they've seen the lows of BYU and Kansas State, but now these are two programs that are ascending and looking to become something greater than they've ever been in this new 16-team league. But, yeah, Lavelle's impact is still profound today, even in BYU football in 2024.
Well, BYU is off to a 3-0 start, and Kalani Sitake in his 9th year has another 3-0 start, but now jumping back into Big 12 play by hosting K-State. We'll start with your quarterback in Jake Retzloff, who has started. He started 4 games last year with the injured Keaton Slovis on the bench, or on the shelf for 4 games, and then this season he's thrown for over 800 yards, 7 touchdowns, and I feel like K-State's secondary can really be tested by his talent. But what you've seen so far from him this season, was that shown off last year, or has he taken a major step so far this year that the numbers are looking better?
He's taken a major step, and within those numbers, there's also been some near interceptions, and I think a lot of Cougar fans are kind of wondering to see if those near interceptions, now against better competition against the nationally ranked Kansas State team, is that going to become turnovers? Because last year, when he took over in the final 4 games, call it what it is, he was a turnover machine. I mean, he was coughing it up left and right, and that's why BYU was winless. That Oklahoma game, that pick 6 from the 1-yard line, that will live in BYU infamy. It just will. And Jake had to take that and really get better from that. And he has. He trained with John Beck, the same trainer for Zach Wilson before, and Jaron Hall, who's currently with the Seattle Seahawks. So he kind of followed the path of some of the recent BYU greats, and he's clearly improved. But, one thing that he's got to continue to get better, and he did a nice job last week against Wyoming, is just that ball security. When he does take off and run, he's got to secure the football. BYU's going to dial up some design runs for Jake. Not often. They're going to pick their spots, but when he does take off and run, he's got to secure the football because in the first 2 weeks, he had some balls that hit the turf. And, one of them was recovered by BYU's offense, but the others were turnovers. So that's going to be a key thing for him now that he's going into Big 12 play, but he has improved.
Now, I saw in his Instagram account, Jake, he says his nickname is, and I'm just quoting his Instagram account, BYU, which I do believe he's the only starting quarterback in college football at the FBS level who is Jewish. Do you know the background on that? Like, is that a nickname he gave himself or somebody else gave him?
He gave himself that name, and last year he made some NIL, merchandise with that, and quickly it kind of got taken down with the NIL group that he was with. It didn't last long, let's say that. So if you did get one of those few shirts, I think Jake was just kind of like, maybe I don't go in this direction. But, yes, he did give himself that name, BYU, and he's embraced BYU being a LDS school, and he's a Jewish athlete, and BYU respects his faith. And, that's one of the things about BYU is that you don't have to be LDS to go to BYU. You can be really any faith that you want. They still have their honored code, and he's got to live that like any student that's there, an athlete. But, Jake has really embraced BYU. And it's interesting, when BYU recruited him, they looked at him as someone that could be a QB1 in the heart of their tenure as a Big 12 team. Offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick felt like they found a hidden gem on the JC trail because that's not a thing much anymore. You don't find JUCO transfers. You turn to the transfer portal instead. And Jake, rewrote the record books at Riverside Community College and put up monster numbers. And, it's been a little bit of a filling out process at BYU, but he's improving. And, man, what an opportunity he's got on Saturday night against this K-State team that, with that 3-3-5 defense that they have. And I think it's going to be a good test for Jake to see how he performs against this group.
Mitch, BYU's offense, after 3 wins on the season, winning at Wyoming, winning at SMU, and then a Week 1 win over Southern Illinois, who K-State saw a few years ago. Right now, BYU is 6th in the Big 12 in total offense. So kind of take me through the rest of the offense. Who are the major standout and key players for that side of the football?
Wide receiver Chase Roberts, number 2, is a guy to keep an eye on. He has been outstanding for BYU this year. Pro Football Focus, if you're into those grades, rated him the number 1 Power 4 wide receiver last week with his performance at Wyoming. He's been really good. He's the top target for Jake Retzloff in the passing game, and Chase Roberts has added a little bit of weight. He's even acknowledged coming into the season that the physicality of Big 12 secondaries kind of surprised him a little bit. So he added some weight, maintained his speed, and he's looked good real early on this season. And, BYU felt good coming into the year with their depth at receiver, but there was this unknown feeling of, like, who's going to be that number 1 guy? Who's going to be that clear-cut, Puka Nacua, who was that 2 years ago for BYU? They didn't feel like they had that guy, but now it's clearly Chase Roberts. So he's one to keep an eye on. Tight end Keanu Hill is another. He's number 1. He switched over from wide receiver to tight end. He took a vicious hit last week. The Wyoming defender had a targeting, clear shot to the helmet, and Keanu was dazed and confused. But he's cleared concussion protocols, and he's going to play on Saturday night, so he's another guy to watch. And then, a player that has been one of the most improved guys, and you probably know about him, Mitch, with his time in the Big 12 before BYU, is Caleb Etienne, former left tackle at Oklahoma State. He's back at left tackle at BYU, and he's been one of the stars along BYU's offensive line and one of the highest graded guys for the program at the offensive line spot, through the first 3 weeks. And NFL scouts with his size, they are intrigued by him because he's always had the athleticism. He's always had the measurables. Now he's putting out good film. So he's one to watch as well.
Speaking with BYU Insider with KSL News Radio, Mitch Harper joins us. Take a look at the defense. There's a couple of numbers that really stand out to me, but if I'm going to go based on what was talked about the most at Chris Kleiman's press conference, he talked about the size of the defensive front, and 19 tackles for loss so far this season is a really good number. So I'll just ask you, with BYU's defense, is that where it starts up front with the big boys?
I would have told you a month ago, probably not. But yes, it is after a month of what we've seen so far in 3 weeks. Yes, it does start up front because BYU has been much improved in that area. And, last year they had only 11 sacks for the entire season. They're already up to 6 this year through 3 weeks. And preseason All Big 12 pick, defensive end Tyler Batty has been an absolute star for BYU. And, his stats aren't gaudy. The attention he commands from opposing offensive line, he has to be accounted for every time. And still, he's got 11 tackles. He's got a pass deflection. I mean, he's making an impact. And then a guy to keep an eye on is number 17, Jack Kelly. And I bring him up even though he's a linebacker. They can use him at that outside edge spot, kind of a hybrid guy. He's kind of the classic, Big 12 defender where he's got this great size measurables, but you can use him in so many different ways. BYU is lacking a freak athlete like that, and Jack Kelly has been an absolute star. 13 tackles, 2 sacks, and this week even ESPN's Mel Kiper was saying he's fifth now on his NFL Draft 2025 outside linebacker board. A huge climb because his speed and size, it's top shelf, and he is going to be someone that if anyone on BYU's defense can slow down or maybe keep up with Avery Johnson potentially, Jack Kelly would be the guy, number 17. So, yeah, BYU's defensive front has improved a lot. They put a lot of resources from the coaching perspective at that area. They got a defensive end coach. They got a D-tackle coach. They got the former Wisconsin head coach, Gary Anderson, who also coached at Oregon State and Utah State. He's an analyst. So there's a lot of coaching personnel committed to that area, and it's paying off so far.
I got to touch on special teams here for just a moment. If you know anything about K-State football, especially back in the Bill Snyder days, what they really pride themselves on, and the fans themselves now call K-State Special Teams U, is that dating back decades, K-State has had an electric kick and punt return game, and Dylan Edwards brought one back to the house against Arizona in the second quarter, 71 yards for a touchdown. But I saw as well that BYU has a kickoff return for a touchdown in Keelan Marion. I'm just wondering, how is special teams advertised at BYU? Is Keelan Marion one of those players that can be returning it for a touchdown at any moment?
I think until last week, I think a lot of people were getting a little bit frustrated with Keelan because he was being so aggressive. He even deep in his own end zone, he's taking it out, and then he's ending up at like the 10, 12-yard line like we do in college football 25 when we're playing the video game. That's the type of returns we have. That's what he was doing. But then it was interesting in that halftime locker room, Kalani told the team, the kick return unit, when they were coming out of that Wyoming game, he spoke it into existence almost. He said there's going to be an opportunity to return this one. It was kind of a strange, amazing moment, foreshadowing by Kalani, and then it happened. First kick return for a touchdown in 10 years for BYU, so it's not a place known for its return game. They're few and far between, but Keelan Marion's got speed, and he could break one, and he's aggressive too, so don't be surprised to see number 17 on the offense, special teams, break one and maybe return one that you're thinking, oh, wow, he's taking that out that deep in the end zone. He'll return it.
All right, Mitch, got a couple more questions for you. For K-State fans, I know they left, actually, some did pretty early to get out to Provo in the Salt Lake City area just to get some time away and probably enjoy some cooler weather. I mean, this week it's been in the 90s, and I think around game time it could be maybe in the 50s or 60s. But it's K-State's first trip to Utah in general for football since 1992. Have not been to LaVell Edwards Stadium in forever. How would you explain the night game atmosphere at BYU?
It is electric, Mitch, and BYU has made significant upgrades to its game day experience in the last 10 years, and it's even ratcheted up more since they joined the Big 12. And I think that was not pressure, I want to say, but a nudge from Brett Yormark 2 years ago when Yormark took the job as the commissioner. He came and visited the BYU Baylor game, and that was a massive, late-night marquee window spot for BYU Baylor. But it was just a nudge to improve it even more. And so you're always going to be having your attention filled with something. I think that's one of the things that's interesting about BYU games now is, okay, TV timeout, and those are longer than ever, it feels like. It feels like they're like 3 minutes now. But you're going to have your attention drawn on something, whether it's Cosmo and some fire knife. Something is going to be happening that gets your attention going. And that's been kind of an interesting dynamic that's changed in recent years for BYU. They've got great Wi-Fi, which I know is a nice luxury to just have. It's like the equivalent to, I believe it's the Philadelphia Eagles, the same Wi-Fi system in the NFL they use. And then if you're sitting in the northwest end zone, that's the visitor section for BYU, you'll be greeted by volunteers at BYU. They will bring the ice cream. They will, you can even in the pregame get a tour of the press box if you go early enough and go through that northwest end zone. There's a greeter there to show you around and give you a tour of the stadium. The hospitality will be great. Fans will love it. There are bars around the area if you want to consume that. There's only 2. So there's not many, but there are some. Wisconsin a few years back drank the place dry. It was kind of crazy how epic that was. But I'm curious to see if K-State fans can do that. I'll put the challenge out there for them. But it's a fun atmosphere, and I think as time goes on, and like watching last week that Friday game between K-State and Arizona, I just thought, man, that's a dynamite atmosphere. I can't wait to get to Manhattan. I think a lot of people in the Big 12, K-State fans included, are going to be like, I want to go to a game in Provo. And I think it's a really fun atmosphere. The fans are respectful. You're going to have a good time. It's all about the game. Yes, the fans are going to be loud, but I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I think people are going to come away feeling like, man, that win or lose, that is a fun night of college football in the Big 12. And that's a must-see in the tour of Big 12 stadiums around the league.
Mitch, it's so funny because literally Tuesday on my show I mentioned, I'm pretty sure BYU in the area, there's only 2 bars around, and it's because literally because of that Wisconsin story. I remember hearing about that. That's so funny that you bring that up. It's now just become a famous story. Correct me if I'm wrong, but K-State fans, we love to tailgate. It is a important part of pregame festivities, but there's no alcohol, no tobacco, nothing like that allowed on campus?
That's correct. And there is some tailgating lots. I believe it's lot 18. I'll have to look up the specific exact location. It's a little bit away from the stadium, and that's not ideal. And that's where one area where BYU is lacking is a tailgate area that's close to the stadium. But there are some spots where some BYU fans enjoy some beverages. There is a crew. Even BYU's AD calls them the Bearded Cougs, I believe, is Bearded Brews and Cougs. Lot 18, that's the insider tip to on where to go, and they'll treat you right. But that's an area where it's got to improve. And BYU has a thing next to the stadium called Cougar Canyon, but that's more kind of corporate-y, and it's got food trucks, and there's a band. So there's that aspect, but if you want just sitting by the stadium, 4 or 5 hours, just eating, drinking, talking ball, getting ready for the game, they lack in that area. And that's something BYU's got to improve on.
All right, Mitch, one more about the concession stands there at LaVell Edwards Stadium. You can't watch a BYU game without somebody bringing up a cougar tail, which I believe is just a big giant donut. But you tell me, I don't know, how much is it and how highly would you recommend getting one of those?
Highly recommend getting the cougar tail. It's $7.
Oh,
get
not bad.
Chocolate milk with it, and it's awesome. You're going to get a sugar rush. I mean, it is loaded with sugar, but yes, it is very good. It's just a maple bar, super-sized donut. You're right, but it's tasty. It's good. And BYU and Utah County, Provo, they are known for their treats. And instead of all the bars around the area, there's only 2, like as noted, but instead they have soda shops where you go to happy hour and it's go get a Mountain Dew loaded with some lemonade or coconut cream or whatever it is. That's kind of the thing in Utah County and Provo. But yes, the Cougar Tail, highly recommend it. It is a must get, and it's well worth it. It's fairly reasonably priced, only $7.
Yeah, I was just last week watching a documentary on just the Mormon faith in Provo and BYU, and that one of those soda shops is actually a big key part of that documentary. I thought that was very interesting. But I hope I get to make it out there someday for a game, not this time, but hopefully sometime soon. Mitch, love your work. Appreciate everything you do, and I appreciate your time here on this show. Thank you so much.
You bet, Mitch. It's a pleasure chatting, and again, looking forward to seeing all the K-State fans. I think this is going to be an electric atmosphere on Saturday night.
All right, once again, that is Mitch Harper. He is from KSL News Radio and a BYU insider. And Troy, I may have spoke too soon on the lack of Diet Coke. It sounds like you can get a spiked Diet Coke, and what I mean by that, probably double sugar, double caffeine, loaded up. You're good to go with just one, maybe.
Double sugar, no. Because it's a diet.
Well, true. Okay, my bad. Yeah. Good point.
And double caffeine is going to put you in the realm of almost an energy drink. Diet Coke is one of the highest caffeine drinks you can get.
Man, no wonder you're so chipper every day.
Well, that's also why I'm addicted. Yeah, thank you.
Because of the caffeine.
Yeah, because of the caffeine.
It's exactly why I don't drink caffeine, because of the addiction. Again, big thanks to Mitch Harper. We'll, of course, talk more about BYU in hour number 2. Got Curry Sexton coming on at 5:10, Mitch in Vegas at 5:25. Going to hear from offensive coordinator Connor Riley and get some keys to the K-State game at BYU in hour number 2 as well. But when we come back, I'm going to give these guys an opportunity, including myself. You remember our preseason predictions? We had 20 in 20 days. I'm going to give these guys an opportunity to change one prediction. Have they changed their mind about a particular prediction? We'll talk about more when we come back. You're listening to The Game.
Your home for K-State sports.
From a sold-out Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City on a clear, cold night, welcome to the Dr. Pepper Big 12 Championship. One of the hottest teams in college football, Kansas State, takes on everybody's number 1, the Oklahoma Sooners.
With 7 yards to go, it's third down. This was that song I was talking about earlier. We'll get you pumped up. Fourth down. Mitch Holtis caught me. I'm sure others did as well.
Right through that one.
All right. A few minutes left here in hour number 1. Hour number 2, Curry Sexton, Mitch in Vegas, offensive coordinator Connor Riley, all coming up. I'm going to give these guys, including myself, one final opportunity to change a prediction that we had beginning of the season. Now that K-State has played 3 games, now that all of K-State's opponents have played 2 or 3 games, would you like to change your prediction on K-State's conference record this year? I said 7-2. I believe Troy said 6-3, and I think AJ said 7-2. I do want to change mine.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
8-1. Maybe being overzealous. But K-State has played a different 3 halves than they did in the previous 3 halves. Their second 3 halves of the season so far has been at a high level. What has shown that is the final score and the point differential in that second half in the Tulane game. The numbers don't necessarily say K-State's at an elite level. They are stopping the run. They are running the football. Right now, the rest of the defense has been but don't break, but still doing a great job. And the passing offense, it's been efficient. It's just not giant numbers or anything. Mm-hmm. Avery has taken care of the football. I mean, heck, a lot of people in the media nationally think Avery Johnson's playing at an elite level. That's not my word. That's other people's word that they've used. And I think that, some of the difficulty that we've seen on K-State's schedule leading into this season has dropped off a bit. I still think K-State absolutely has some challenges, but there's a couple that I'm not as high on as I previously was.
West Virginia.
Yeah. KU's a home game.
Valid.
I mean, we'll see where they're at when we get there. I think West Virginia, I think there's better. I say better odds. Maybe they're about the same. Actually, maybe KU's a little bit better, but it's because West Virginia is playing that game in Morgantown against K-State. But K-State's odds of winning some of these games that were maybe close at the beginning of the year, I think have gone more in K-State's favor with a 3-0 start, and especially when you throttle Arizona like they did. So do you guys want to change how you feel about K-State's conference schedule?
I'm still leery of inconsistency in the passing game, and I am still leery of where the defense sits right now. The Tulane game was just enough for me to still be skeptical that there's going to be times where it's going to get exposed. And if I had to adjust, I would go 7-2. But I don't see much of a change now.
I mean, and that's still pretty good. That's still a great chance to make the Big 12 championship game because you don't play Utah. Utah and Oklahoma State are going to play each other. Arizona, who's obviously still in the mix because they have a clean slate ahead of them. The K-State game was not a conference game. they still have some bumps in the road coming up with a game against Utah, and but I think a lot of people look at this BYU game as a trap game. I think it certainly can be, but if K-State goes in there and proves a point, people's ceiling for K-State is just going to continue to grow.
True.
I'm going to stick with 7-2 because this game against BYU makes me a little nervous. And even though they've struggled, the KU game makes me nervous because eventually they are going to have a loss in the Sunflower Showdown, K-State is. And my fear is that this year is going to be that year, unfortunately. I'm really kind of worried that the streak's coming to an end here soon.
Well, I understand that whole point about BYU. It's a scary. It's a little bit of a scary road trip because of the atmosphere. But I also bring up this point. Right now, we look at the biggest key in this game, the atmosphere. What does that tell you? I mean, what does that say about BYU, the actual team? If the atmosphere is the number one key.
No, that's a great point. They're not nearly what we thought they might be going into this season.
I'm just not quite sure on BYU and how good they actually are because I think they've played a soft schedule so far. K-State's definitely played a tougher non-con. I mean, what's tougher going up this season, going to Tulane or going to Wyoming?
Right.
Wyoming is probably not that good this year.
No, that's a given.
All right, we got to wrap up hour number one, but when we come back, we're going to talk with a former 1,000-yard receiver for K-State. Graduated his final year was 2014. We're going to speak with Curry Sexton in here in just a moment. Mitch in Vegas, we're going to hear from OC Connor Riley as well. Don't go anywhere. The game after work, after these words.